Hello everyone, it's Jo and Jo from Hoarding Disorders UK, and we are going to have a bit of a conversation this morning, specifically focusing on the reasons why people hoard. This isn't a presentation, it's nothing formal, we're just going to have a chat about what we feel about it. So start us off, Jo.
Oh, good morning. So yes, I'm the other Jo. Hoarding can be very complex, and I think it's important to understand some of the reasons why we might hoard. And from my experience and my knowledge, and through, I learn through the clients that I work with.
Yeah.
I know that loss and bereavement are, huge things that people experience, and as a result of that, they find comfort in stuff. And when we talk about bereavement and loss, we talk about, the loss of bereavement can take on many forms. It's a sense of grief, and it might be around, losing a loved one that's passed on, and that can be, a mother, a brother. It can be miscarriage. It can be the loss of a job. It can be the loss of a marriage. Any kind of losing something, and it can impact on our self-esteem as well. So I think it can never be underestimated how much loss can be a reason why people might start hoarding behaviours.
And I think it's that especially if there has been a bereavement, often what goes along with loss is the accumulation of more stuff.
Absolutely.
Somebody passes away, and then all of a sudden you've got the whole of your mum's house that you've got to deal with, which isn't necessarily something that you can deal with straight away. I know I worked with a lady, and she'd, her brother had passed away, and she got all his stuff, and then all that became stuff in the house, but then she just kind of kept adding to that then, because she couldn't face dealing with getting rid of the stuff. Felt like sort of losing him again, really.
That's right.
Just continuing that grief and continuing that bereavement, and re-feeling it all the time with all those items, and it's very difficult to let go. I know through my own grief journeys that it's not easy to kind of to come to terms with it, and it is a process, isn't it? It takes some time.
Absolutely. Yes, and I think with that comes any sense of guilt that we might feel about dishonoring that person's memory. So I think sometimes we have to have conversations with ourselves about, your mother wouldn't want you holding on to that hideous sideboard from 1970. She'd want you to not to feel you had to keep it in honor of her memory. So sometimes just, yes, you have to give yourself permission to let go, but sometimes take a photo. It's not really the stuff that give us the memories. It's the occasion. So yeah, it can be difficult, and I think it's about, when you're ready, you'll know when you're ready, and slowly let go at a pace that's
yeah. And I think redundancy I've kind of experienced before with people, that loss of a job, and then you've got all the financial insecurity that goes along with that. So then you're hanging on to the stuff because it's got a value, or I might not be able to afford to get this again, and that can really escalate the problem, can't it? And it kind of can start there and then just keep going, really, even when you have got enough money. That sort of that fear of that I might be in that situation again, and the lack, and not having those things, can be huge, can't it?
Absolutely. And then it becomes a habit, it becomes a behavior. So I think sometimes we have to view our hoarding habits. It's just like, well, that's what we did then in response to uncertainty, just like in the same way that, I'm hoping that the people that panic buyed over loo rolls and aspirin and pasta during lockdown can appreciate how someone with hoarding behaviours does that on a daily basis through that sense of anxiety.
Yeah, I felt that. I remember when it was first announced that we're going into lockdown, and my first response was, I need to fill my car up with petrol, and we need to go and get some food. And we bought a 10-kilo bag of sticky rice. We don't even eat sticky rice, and But I really felt it, that absolute sort of fear that that I wouldn't be able to get it or whatever. It was very, very real, and I was very aware of it. It wasn't like it was, it wasn't like there wasn't any awareness. I was quite aware of it, but I still did it. We've got some huge tins of tomatoes downstairs, which we're now okay. When are we going to use those? But so the awareness was there, as often is the case with
absolutely
hoarding,
yes.
But but actually changing behaviour is a very difficult thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's about making those small changes, and I always talk to people. Some people don't like to change their behaviours. It's not that they don't like to, it's they're fearful of change and the effort involved in that effort. So it's just like, well, how do we run a marathon? Well, we start by putting our trainers on.
Yeah,
that's where we start. So it's like, well, how do I deal with my behaviours? You make those tiny changes. But yes, it is having an awareness of your behaviours and having the confidence just to tweak it a little bit each time.
So we talked about loss. So what are some of the other reasons why people hoard?
Trauma. I think, and any sense of trauma. I mean, and I think it's rather pertinent to talk about what's going on now. Some people are completely traumatized by COVID-19, and I think coming out of this, there'll be all sorts of different behaviours that will manifest in people, and one of them might be hoarding. But and I think any breakdown, so trauma can take on in any types of, we all feel trauma in its own way, and that can be through a life event. It can be, as we talked about, redundancy. It can be, it can be divorce, it can be moving house, it can be someone whose house has been flooded. And sometimes if you've got 2 or 3 life events that you've experienced and you've not necessarily reconciled yourself with each one of them and how you respond, you can just become paralyzed by your stuff.
And I think with that trauma, there's fear attached, and often stuff is our security blanket. It's our safety, isn't it? Especially with people who hoard, it's kind of building a wall of stuff around them to protect them, and that stuff isn't going to hurt me. It's not going to abuse me. It's not going to do anything to me, and it's not going to leave me. It's safe. It's there. But it's almost like it's not an inanimate object again. It kind of has this, because it has this meaning, this value, then it's so important, isn't it? And it's not right. You can just get rid of, And it is dealing with all these issues. I mean, people think that hoarding's about the stuff, and it's not.
No, it's absolutely not. And I always say it's about the person. The stuff is secondary. And you can see, and as children, as babies and as toddlers, we surround ourselves. Our cots are full of teddy bears, and it makes us feel safe and secure. So I know you talked about acting as a security blanket. It very much is. And sometimes it's about filling a void, and sometimes it's a sense of, I always call it emotional insulation. It's like it gives that warm glow that we feel by being surrounded by stuff, and especially when we're feeling vulnerable, we've got this stuff that we can, as you said, doesn't hurt us.
Rely on. It's there for us, isn't it? It ain't going anywhere. What about inherited, genetic, or how do you feel about that?
I think research is sort of, there's not much research being done on it. Yes, I do think some of it is genetic, and we know that many people with hoarding behaviours also have ADHD, and ADHD can be a genetic disorder. So I've worked with many families that have inherited that ADHD gene. A hoarding gene, yes, to a degree, because it's a part. Sometimes people's brains are wired in a different way, people with hoarding behaviours, and yes, you can inherit that, but also you can inherit learned behaviour. And I think more of it is around learned behaviour.
I think it's like organising. People think it's something you can either do or can't, but it's actually a skill, and it's a skill that you need to learn and you need to develop. And, and some people just, it's like time management and planning and prioritising and all those things. And, often they're kind of missing, aren't they? And that's the problem, like if you don't know how to categorise things, then how do you organise your space, So it's, there's just maybe skills that haven't been developed, and those need to be learned.
Yeah. But interestingly, I was talking to someone that had been to one of my hoarding support groups, and we were talking about the reasons why people hoard, and everyone sort of shared their story. And this lady said to me, well, I haven't experienced any loss or any bereavement or any trauma, but I don't feel loved. I don't feel loved by my family, and I didn't feel loved as a child. So that sense of belonging, a sense of connection, just the whole sense of her self-esteem, and you could understand that. So she literally filled her house up with stuff in response to a feeling of lack of love.
Yeah.
So, and you quite often find, and it can be through loneliness as well, and lack of connection, is find that I've had an experience of people who grew up without any siblings, the only children, or people that have been adopted. It's just something, sometimes when we've got those siblings around us, you've got that feeling of a tribe that you feel you belong to.
Yeah.
So that sense of identity can also go alongside.
Yes, because a lot of people sort of get their identity through their stuff, don't they? And it's that's what I've done, and this is who I am, and these sort of things define me. Yeah. What other things can you think of?
So control. I think again, people that have had some trauma in their life, or life experiences or childhood issues.
Yeah.
You can't control what's happening in the outside world, and that they need to have a sense of control. And actually, they see hoarding as giving them a sense of control.
There was a lady I spoke to, and hers was very, very specific. When she was a child, she was often on her own. She didn't really fit in at school and things, and she got her solace in books. So she would sit in her room and she would read books over and over and over again. And she got home one day, and her mum had given her books away. Because she'd read them, and not trying to blame anybody or anything like that, but that had a massive effect on her, and so her hoarding now was very, very specific. It was about books, and she wouldn't get rid of any books, and she gathered and acquired all the ones that she loved, and a lot of them were beautiful ones from art galleries and things like this, and that was in response to that very, very specific event,
and I hear that many times, where as a child or as a person, they didn't feel important enough to have been consulted. So for instance, I know someone that went to boarding school. She was not told she was going to, she wasn't involved in the discussion around going to boarding school. So and I know someone whose record player was thrown away without any consultation. So again, it's that, well, you didn't consult me, or so that might be another reason later on to well, I'm going to have what I want, because I was denied that. So people will make up for it in many ways, and I know a lot of people that didn't have that. We talk about emotional deprivation. Not just that can people respond to that as well. They felt deprived. They're going to make up for it.
I come across quite a lot of people who are very creative as well, and it's kind of this idea that something amazing can happen with this thing, but then what they spend their time gathering the stuff and never really doing the creative stuff. They haven't got the time, they haven't got the space. So these beautiful ideas, and and seeing bottle top as this absolutely amazing thing that I can do this with, and it's beautiful to watch. It really is, but then you know, that kind of need to sort of feel that, I suppose, and fulfill that, you know, it doesn't means that none of the creative stuff actually happens, you know.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, you know, creativity kind of gone to an extreme, really. And
yes, that's right. Yeah,
which can be really difficult.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of reasons why, and it's
and they can be and they can be very complex as well. And sometimes it might be a case of, you know, we talk about the just in case.
Yeah.
We talk about the just in case, and actually sometimes people will then be able to validate their just in case.
Yeah.
Or they might then, the way of helping people with their just in case is by group. I mean, we're talking about sort of useful tips now, but if you put all your just in case things together in one go, you know, you can then realize that actually you've got 120 pencils. I'm still working my way through my father's pencils. You know, he would acquire pen because he could, just in case.
Yeah.
Well, I've still got a few years to live yet. I'm never going to get through his pencils.
And it's funny, isn't it, how that gets validated? Because I spoke to somebody the other day, and the lawnmower broke, and they went to their grandfather's bolts, which they've got like this whole huge amount of all this stuff from their grandfather, and they found the one bolt. Therefore, everything I'm doing is kind of validated. You know, it's kind of, I'll keep this just in case, and then you know, I found that one thing, so that justifies kind of everything that's there. You know, it's interesting, isn't it? It's but I mean, I've kind of changed my relationship with stuff over the years, and you know, it's not easy to let go. You know, I think everybody has these tendencies in some sort of you know, differing amount, but you know, with hoarding, it's gone to an extreme level, really. You know, I identify so much with some of these things. You know, some of the things I've held on to, you know, and struggled to let go of because of emotional attachment. You know, I completely get it. I completely get it. But you know,
and I think that sometimes these things can represent our timeline. You know, they represent who we are.
Yeah.
And it's like it's you know, that's your CV. It's like we hoard history. We're hoarding our CV. And it's those timelines that people like to keep, because it's a reminder of, again, going back to their identity. But also, you know, I need to keep that because that reminds me of my holiday. I need to keep that because that, you know, I was this important person in this important job, and then I need to keep that because that reminds me of that relationship. So literally, they're hoarding their history, which is really interesting.
I got rid of some old Valentine's cards from old boyfriends the other day, you know, and I've held on to them for years. You know, it's really, it's funny what we do, but there is help. That's the message, everybody. So you know, we are more than happy to have conversations, help in any which way we can. There's lots of information that we have on the website, blogs, things like that, and also Jo's book, Understanding Hoarding, which is a fantastic read. So if you want to know any more, then please don't hesitate to get in touch. We're here to help. So if we can help in any way, give us a shout. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye. Bye.